Welcome back to Horror Vibes. This story is entitled The Crawlspace. The year was 2002. I was 19 years old, without direction, and I still lived with my mother. She has money, so she buys a house out in the sticks. The house is a 2-story house with a basement and a 3-car garage. It's not bad at all. We move in, and things are great the first night. I begin setting up my room upstairs, and I discovered a Crawlspace entry for the attic. Being curious, I decided to investigate. I opened up the Crawlspace and crawl in. The door was little, about 2.5 by 4 feet. There's a tiny window I couldn't find but could see from the outside that was illuminating the room. The room runs the full length of the house, north to south. The east wall is floor to ceiling, covered in a dry erase board. It's loaded with drawings clearly made by children with what appeared to be permanent markers. I have no idea how old the drawings are. My best guess is that they were drawn by 2 or 3 kids. It's all normal stuff. Cars, family, rocket ships, each other, mum and dad. There was also one weird figure who was always drawn completely black. It had short legs, long arms, long hair, and no face. Just a black circle. Going from north to south, the figure becomes more common, larger and more prominent. It gets closer to the family, but always behind. It always has the same features though. It gives me the creeps. Aside from that wall, the room is just bare. Only a layer of dust to be seen on the floor. I leave the room and seal it up. I put my dresser drawers in front of the door, went downstairs to play video games, and just tried to forget about it. In the middle of the second night, I fell asleep on the couch while watching TV. I was woken up by a strange sound coming from upstairs. It sounded like something bouncing and rolling from north to south on the second floor. The only hardwood floor upstairs is the Crawlspace. The second floor is carpeted. This sound continued for 3 hours. All I heard was rolling from north to south, north to south, south to north, then back. Then it stops. I fall asleep anyway. With my skepticism, I convince myself it's the wood settling in with new weight on it. On the third night, I hear it again, being accompanied by another sound. I think my ears are deceiving me. I hear footsteps. Bare feet footsteps. Small ones. They're running after the bouncing sound that I finally recognized as one of those ultra-bouncy rubber super balls. The next morning, I enter the Crawlspace to investigate. The first thing I notice are footprints in the dust layer. They aren't even half the size of my size 13 boots that I was wearing while I was in here yesterday. This one set of footprints moves north to south, then south to north, in what appears to be a perfect loop. The only other footprints are mine from yesterday. I decided to close up the Crawlspace, put the dresser back, and go and play video games again. I hear the bouncing noise start again. I hear the sound of footsteps again. This time, there are 2 sets of footsteps. The second, newer set of footsteps sounds heavier. I was 6 feet tall at the time, and they sounded comparable to mine. This time though, they were faster, almost chasing after the smaller feet in the same pattern. North to south. South to north. Repeat. Additionally, the Super Ball noise is firmer. It sounds like it's being thrown instead of just bounce rolled. I put earbuds in and listen to some old school Metallica and ignore it. I tell my mum when she gets home from work. Naturally, she's skeptical about it. The next night, nothing happens. No sounds to be heard. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then, at the crack of dawn, I hear a third set of footsteps accompanying the first set. They sound lighter than the second set of footsteps. I try to ignore it. The sounds stop, so I resume playing video games on the living room TV. Suddenly, I hear something coming down the stairs, bouncing. The cat decides this is an excellent time to suddenly become completely insane. It poofs out to the size of a basketball and begins growling and hissing at the stairs. An ultra-bouncy rubber Super Bowl comes bouncing down the stairs, accompanied by the sound of tiny footsteps running away from the top of the stairwell. I was in complete disbelief. It's mid-July in Iowa and was nearly 95 degrees Fahrenheit outside, or 35 degrees Celsius if I recall correctly. The air conditioning wasn't working, so it was turned off. All of a sudden, a massive cold draft starts coming from upstairs. This startles the cat to the point he runs out to the porch, yowling and screaming as if he's being eaten. I pick up and stare at the Super Bowl. It looks decades old, and there's a chunk missing out of it. I take it outside, and I throw it in the dumpster to be collected by the garbage truck the next day. That night, there was not a noise to be heard in that house. This silence continued for a week. Out of the blue one night, the sounds start up again. This time it includes all 3 sets of footsteps and the Super Bowl. My mum hears all the noises too. I'm really freaked out, but more angry than anything. I go upstairs and tear open the Crawlspace. I find footprints everywhere in the dust. There are 3 distinct sets of little kids' footprints. Additionally, there's one set that looks like Shaq has been barefoot in our attic. These footprints have 4 toes, missing the pinky toe, and were bigger than my size 13 boot. Out of sheer terror, I leave the Crawlspace and seal it up. I spend 20 minutes caulking the door shut to make sure it stays that way. As I'm heading back downstairs, I hear footsteps behind me running across the hall. I look back and see that the Super Bowl is at the top of the stairs. I slowly back down the stairs and go sit down. 30 seconds later, the sounds start again. This time, I only hear the lighter feet and the Super Bowl. I stand up and switch on the upstairs light that illuminates the top of the stairs. The ball had disappeared. At this point, I had had enough, so I went to live with my aunt for a week. My mum said the noises stopped after I left. When I came home, the noises started within 5 minutes of me walking through the door and unpacking my luggage. I heard a loud thud coming from the Crawlspace door, followed by the sound of a ball bouncing off the wall, this time at face height. Over and over and over again. It would hit the wall, then the floor, then pause, and repeat. In a moment where I screwed up my courage, I said, "Hey, play quieter please." The sound suddenly stopped dead, with no further sounds for 3 days. In the morning following the silence of the 3 days, the most recent sounds start again. Just the ball, no feet. Suddenly, silence. The bouncing ball noise starts again. This time, it's coming down the stairs and hitting the walls on the way down. I check and find that nothing is coming down the stairs. This occurs over and over again for probably an hour. I start a tournament in my video game and ignore it. All of a sudden, I hear a massive crash come from upstairs. It sounded like there was stuff flying everywhere. Then the bouncing sound occurred again. The power in the entire house blacks out for 2 to 3 seconds. Well, so much for the tournament, I thought. I head to the stairs, terrified. I find the ball at the bottom of the stairs, greeting me as if to say, "Hello, mortal plaything." I pick the ball up and go upstairs. I find my dresser in pieces, and the door to the crawlspace knocked off its hinges. Now this room is 15 feet, or 5 meters across. There are pieces of my dresser and clothes against the far wall, opposite of where the dresser was standing. I spring downstairs and run outside with the ball. I hurled that ball into the field behind our backyard. As I turned around to go back inside, I see the window to the crawlspace in plain view. It's completely black. Unfortunately, due to my nearsightedness, I couldn't make out the finer details, but it looked like a 3D shadow blocking out the window. I watch as it moves slowly away from the window. I screwed up my courage, and I head back inside the house. I immediately clean up my dresser and pack up my stuff. I'd rather live with my aunt than live with this. I have to be right by the crawlspace entrance to pick up my things. Bounce, bounce, bounce. The ball rolls out of the crawlspace like it shouldn't be 60 yards deep in the field I just threw it into. I hear loud breathing in the crawlspace. This was enough for me to grab my stuff and run. I forced Mum to leave with me. We took the cat and we drove to my aunt's. The next day we returned to finish getting our stuff so we can leave the house for good. There were fire trucks everywhere. We're let through into the house to collect our things and leave the house. In speaking with the lead inspector, they blamed faulty electrics. I asked him where the fire started. He tells me, upstairs, in the bedroom. The crawlspace and my room were completely destroyed, ending the nightmare of that house. Thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed that one, please like and subscribe. If you've ever had any paranormal experiences, or you have a horror story about your own house, please leave it in the comments. I'll pin the top comment. Thanks, and have a great day.